Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
There we go. It's still early in the season, folks. Welcome to Game Over Calgary, your source for fan-focused entertainment. Early this afternoon on a long weekend that is starting off with a bit of a bittersweet taste in Flames fans' mouths, falling by a final score of 4-2. And maybe I should say St. Louis Blues for Matt Coronado too, because there's a lot of things to say about this game, not a lot of them positive. And I don't think I'm the only one saying that. You could get that vibe from the guys who are in the commentary booth. And of course, we do have to say a warm Flames welcome to one of the new people joining the color commentary team. That, of course, being Jason York. Jason York did a fantastic job in his first game on the commentary. And, oh, did I miss something at the end of the hockey game there with Morgan Frost? I must have, because I turned the game off with the last 30 seconds to try and get ready. But yeah, it just wasn't the Flames' day today. KQ, you're going to have to tell me what you mean by WTF Frost. Because I must have missed something. But of course, we'll follow our standard 4 periods. As I need to, once again, change what period we're in. It's not the third period. No, he just doesn't shoot. Fair enough. I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit later. As I said, your Calgary Flames lose by a score of 4-2, but they actually opened the scoring in this one on the power play. Matt Coronado, as I said, he has one of the best wrist shots in the league, gets left all alone, bounces it in off of the defender for the Blues. Yeah, that one bounced in right off the chest of Tyler Tucker, who I honestly felt was an NHL 2026 Be a Pro, just like auto-generated character. But no, apparently in the NHL, goal 1 Flames. And I gotta say, it wasn't the only opportunity the Flames had. Rasmus Andersson had a beauty of a pass come to him from the very same Matt Coronado. Deked backhand, but couldn't either lift it over the pad or just skim it along the ice. Instead, misses the net. And Nazem Kadri had a beautiful tip. Couldn't get it over the glove, or couldn't get it over the glove under the bar on the greatest backup goaltender of all time, which I will say every time a backup goaltender plays in Calgary, because it seems we make them play like they're going to win the Vezina every time, of Hofer. And then the parade to the penalty box really happened in that first period, kind of settled down after that. But you have to make mention of Joel Farabee sacrificing the body multiple times in that first period. He also had the shot blocked in the third that stung him a little bit more than the previous two. So that's really all that it was in the first period. Shots on goal, the Flames lead 9-4 in the first frame. And, you know, gotta say, pretty decent as the secondary chair that I have in my office, because my housemate comes and watches the games with me sometimes in here, so I gotta have 2 chairs. There we go. But after 20 minutes, I think he had to be feeling pretty good about it as a Calgary Flame, because as they said on the broadcast, this is the third game in just under 66 hours the Calgary Flames are playing, and of course the third game Dustin Wolf has played. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Second period of action, Jake Neighbors opens the score for the Blues after just kind of a turnover in neutral ice, and Joel Hanley skates by his man, and that was one Dustin Wolf wanted back. Gets beaten 5-hole on the backhand, and that's the Blues' first goal of the year. you saw immediately he shot that puck out to center and kind of slammed his stick on the ice. As I said, a rested Dustin Wolf does not likely let that goal in. Where have we heard that before? Oh yeah, it was 2 nights ago in Vancouver. I'm starting to notice the trend of this year, folks. And then just over 2 minutes later, power play goal for Robert Thomas. And guys, I don't like beating on this guy. But who is on the ice yet again? It's the pairing of Hanley and Weegar. I heard a lot more voices pointing at Mackenzie Weegar throughout social media on this game. I don't point fingers at Weegar on this one. He has to cover the pass coming out of the corner. I think it's Falk who is in front of the net. I could be wrong. I don't know the Blues roster probably as well as I probably should have. But hey, as I said, fan focused. I'm not an encyclopedia like some of the other guys are on knowing every team's 32-man or roster. It's not 32. That's a different sport, Conrad. But no, it was Braden Shen in front of the net. So Weegar has to play the pass. He's playing that lane as well as he can. And just a perfect shot to beat Dustin Wolf. Flames trail 2-1. And as I said, a lot of fans online are roasting Weegar. And I, as I said, don't think that's the person you should be pointing fingers at. He does everything he can in that position to try and prevent the pass from going to the guy that's right between the hash marks. Best shot I've seen out of a lot of guys who come in, and it's a penalty kill. You're down a man anyways. Speaking of elite releases, this was more of what we expect when it's a Matt Coronado goal. Kevin Ball gets the brilliant down ice. It looked like he was almost going to clear it. It bounces off the stick of the Blues defenseman right onto the blade of Matt Coronado, and Matty C with that elite level wrist shot we all know, we all love, ties the game before Beasley is even finished with the scoring announcement. Matt Coronado, good hockey player. I said it on X, which I am back on slightly. If this guy's not a 30 goal scorer this year, that means he's missed a lot more time to injury than I would have liked to say, or I would like to see. But I think at this point, the future 30 goal scorer, and they had all the talk on the second intermission about how the coaching staff wants him to be a 40 goal scorer. I don't necessarily think that's realistic for this year for Matt Coronado. But 30, I think, has to be the number that fans expect and is an achievable number. So coming out of the second period, Flames dominate play. I think they were talking about the Flames having nearly 30 shot attempts. Officially, the Flames only managed 14 shots, only surrender 12. Shots don't matter. Score does. 2-2 coming out of 40. And then the wheels fall off for the Calgary Flames. They play 50 minutes of hockey, and then they give up 2 goals back-to-back. It's a face-off play. Michael Backlund can't win the face-off. We're going to have more thoughts about Michael Backlund. Parekh dishes it off to Neighbors, or Fowler dishes it off to Parekh. Neighbors with the tip. Flames are down 3-2. And then the wind completely comes out of the sails after that. Break-in goal. Flames have it bounce off the stanchion that's behind Dustin Wolf's net. And hey, I understand that these boards are new since the floods of Calgary, but that is a known issue. Can we not find a way to hammer that stanchion down, or I don't know, put the stanchion on the other? No, you can't do that because the ZAM comes in from that door. It's just so unfortunate that it's in your home team defensive zone for 2 periods. Like, we know as Flames fans, we've seen so many pucks bounce off that stanchion. It's even worse for the Wranglers. It's just such an unfortunate play. The Wolf recovers, however, gets back in net, but the second effort, you see all 4 of your forwards all the way back below the hash marks, except for Joel Farabee. And he's over at the other post. Tucker shoots Pia Suter with the tip. And that's all she wrote for the Calgary Flames as they fall 4-2 to the Blues. Now, I'm going to try and keep this a little bit shorter because it is a Saturday. It is early. People want to go watch other hockey games. I totally understand. And hey, it's just me talking at you. No Anand today, as we said, he's handling some other play-by-play duties today. So, and heading down to Mexico tomorrow. Lucky guy. But yeah, we'll head on to period number 2, where I had initially planned for this to be discussion about the backup goalie Vezina, but I think there's a bigger conversation to be had here. And this is the role of Michael Backlund. I love Michael Backlund, keep him as a Flame for life, but he is not a third-line player, especially with how his numbers in the face-off dot have been declining. He needs to be a fourth liner at this point. He needs to take Coleman down with him, go have Blake Coleman, Michael Backlund, and Ryan Lomberg as your fourth line for the next 2 years, forever and ever, amen. Because, God, him losing that face-off draw that cleanly in the defensive zone is a dagger. We talked about it all year last year, how bad the Flames were in the face-off dot. And it just continues. And this is a guy that you gave a contract extension to for 2 years. I understand. As I said, love Michael Backlund. Love Parachutes for Pets. Love what him and Frida have done in the community. But on the ice, it's just not there. The lines even matter from Christine Merrill. They do for the first 2 periods. It's utilization as well. Because he's relied upon way too often in the defensive zone for what his face-off metrics are. If we're talking Michael Backlund of 4 years ago, yeah, probably. That's where he should be used. He should be winning every defensive face-off. He should be operating at a 60%, 65% clip at winning those face-offs. That's just not the reality of what Michael Backlund's game is right now. But then there's a voice in the back of my head and saying, do we want Connor Zary as our third-line center? Do we want Justin Kirkland as a third-line center? Shout out to my man, Matt DeMille, in the chat. Matt, hopefully everything's going well over at the Western Hockey League. Love to see that you're around. But yeah, I understand you wanting Michael Backlund to be a Flame for life. For the diehard Michael Backlund fans, and for those of us who do love what he does in the community. He can do that as an alumni too as the game starts to decline. It's just not good enough. Folks, I'm going to have to go into the NHL stats and hope they actually work today. I know they broke last game, so let's see. So time on ice for Michael Backlund, 1439 total today. Obviously, there is that bump from him also being on the penalty kill. And did take a penalty again today. He was 42.9% in the face-off dot. And yet, I don't have his utilization statistics. I'm not going to pull those up while I'm streaming. But he's, as we can tell from the eye test, he's relied upon 70%, if we have to just base on the eye test and guesstimate, of defensive zone faceoffs. And you're only winning 42%, or 43. Let's round up. We'll be fair. You're going to win 43% of those faceoffs. So 53, or so, assuming 70% of his zone faceoffs are in the defensive zone, there's approximately, you're making me do math, and that makes the brain gears in my head. Let's call it 55% of the time. That's an offensive win for the opponent. I'm sorry if you guys heard the gears grinding in my brain as I'm trying to do quick math in my head of percentages. It's just not good enough. When you compare that to guys like, obviously Blake Coleman had to come in and win his one draw, or take 2 draws, was 50%. He's not a center. Connor Zary, great night in the face-off dot, 51%. Who else was good today? Yikes. Not a good night in the dot for any of our full-time centers. Morgan Frost, 46%. Nazem Kadri, 36.5. That's your top line guy that's getting sheltered face-off starts. When Connor Zary, who was your fourth liner to start the night, was your best face-off taker with 57.1%. Yikes. It's hard to score when you don't have the puck, and it's hard to have the puck when you don't start with it. It's time to demote Michael Backlund. For center. Let him have his penalty kill minutes out there with Blake Coleman. His security blanket. But it's time to recognize the time for Michael Backlund being that guy that's considered for the Selke every year, being an important player for the Flames. Those times have passed. And as Matt put in the chat, Matt, we talked about face-off issues the first game we did together last year. And what did Craig Conroy do to address it in the offseason? Zilch. If you look at Stanley Cup contenders, which we know this team is not, Stanley Cup contenders are built on the strength of their top two centers. And if our top two centers are Nazem Kadri, who is a elite second line center in this league, not a number one, or at least that's what he was when he was in Colorado winning a Stanley Cup, and Morgan Frost, who's okay, probably an up-and-coming second-line center. This isn't how team success is built in the modern NHL. You need two centers who are going 50% or better in the majority of their games. The Flames don't have one. The center position is the spine of every team. And the Flames don't have anyone I would consider elite or even good. But that's my 2 cents on this. That's my period number 2. Lots of good conversation going on in the chat that I have been picking up on. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. We'll get through this third period together, because I think this is something we can maybe be positive on. And that is the debut performance of the 2025 version of Zane Parekh. Now, as you've heard through various media sources, I'm sure, because we're all, as I said, we're all fans. We all take in various forms of media around this team. This was kind of the plan going into things. Allow Parekh to be sheltered to start the season. That's going to be a lot of the first half only playing home games, or only playing against weaker opponents, which, if you're like me and consider the Calgary Flames a bottom 3 team in the West, if not the NHL, I don't know how many weaker opponents there are going to be on the road, but that's a question for the coaching and leadership of this club. I thought Zane Parekh was distinctly okay today. And for anyone that watched me in the preseason, I thought Zane Parekh wasn't ready. And do I think necessarily in this 1-game sample size in the regular season that Zane Parekh is ready to be an everyday NHLer? No. I don't. Do I think the guy he took out of the lineup today in Jake Bean should be an everyday NHLer or have a NHL contract necessarily? The answer to that question is also no. But the upside that Zane Parekh brings is worth the risk, in my opinion. However, is his best defense partner who he was out there with today in Braden Bahal, no. I think you need to make bigger changes if you are going to have this Zane Parekh sheltered experience happen. When you have Zane Parekh in this lineup, I think you need to move Kevin Ball down with Zane Parekh and run as close to a 20-20-20 alignment with all three of your pairings. At least while we have Rasmus Andersson on this club. When we move Rasmus, because it's a when, not an if at this point in my mind. But until that point, if we are still continuing this experiment, you need to put Ball with Parekh and run 20 minutes for each line. Each of your three defensive pairings, rather. So what does this necessarily look like? Because we'll look at what the Flames lineup was today. I had it up and I closed that tab. So we'll open it up, and just so that I 100% have it correct. So your lineups on the back end today was Joel Hanley, Mackenzie Weegar. For whatever reason, Craig Conroy and co. and seem to love this pairing. If you've listened to me over the last two games, you'd know that I think Joel Hanley maybe needs to look at becoming the backup goaltender after the 3 stops he made. If we can order him pads and get a mask painted with Nacho Libre on the side, maybe that's the future for Joel Hanley in this Flaming Sea uniform. Hey, I'd have more confidence in him than we do in Devin Cooley right now. But I digress. If that line's set in stone, I understand. Do I love it? No. Do I understand it? Yes. Kevin Ball, Rasmus Andersson. As I said, you can't have Kevin Ball with Rasmus Andersson if you are inserting Zane Parekh into this lineup. It is not conducive to success. I think you maybe need to move Braden Bahal into that spot and have Rasmus Andersson be the more responsible one. But as I said, with Braden Bahal, I think he's a okay 6th defenseman. Playing him with Rasmus, maybe a little bit too high up the lineup if you're going to put Rasmus's regular numbers in. But again, don't think that should be the plan when you're trying to build Zane Parekh. And then as I said, Braden Bahal, Zane Parekh, move Kevin Ball down there. We're fine. Because if you're going to have Zane Parekh play, I want to look at his 5-on-5 stats. I don't have them. I looked for them before we went live. They weren't available yet. But if we're only going to be playing Zane Parekh sparingly at 5-on-5, what are we doing? Because if we look at Braden Bahal, who spent time penalty killing today, he only played 10 minutes. So you have to assume, let's ballpark it at 8 minutes and 30 seconds, 5-on-5 time for Zane Parekh. Got a lot of time on the power play because the Flames got a lot of those today, and that wasn't very successful. But is that helping your 19-year-old, who we all believe will be a star in this league? Is that really helping him to develop? I don't think so. I could be wrong. I don't think I am. And of course, I think everyone and their dog thinks that their own opinions are right. But, you know, if we're not going to use him here, why is he taking an NHL contract? Or why is he taking his time in the NHL? Why not go have him pump the OHL for 1 million goals, break his own record, and say, hey, you're going to go to the AHL next year? I don't know. As I said, the CHL rule sucks. I'm Matt DeMille, close your ears. He should not be going back to the CHL. He should be in the AHL right now, lighting it up with the Wranglers. But we cannot do that because of the agreement with the Canadian Hockey League. It is what it is. I'm also going to take this time. I don't want to do a 4th period where I'm just ranting again. So we'll keep this in the 3rd period. We'll do another rant. Why are we playing Dustin Wolf 3 times in 60 hours? We had this talk yesterday, but seeing Dustin Wolf's performance makes me believe even harder that this coaching staff is misusing their goaltending. And if the decision is being left to Jason LaBarbera, the Barbs, listen, buddy, Devin Cooley needs to take one of these two. Like, your young superstar goaltender getting lit up because he doesn't have the breaks that he's used to when he had a tandem, throwing him right into the fire is not acceptable. Like, Craig, I understand you went with Cooley because, he's what we're used to. He is familiar with the systems and familiar with Jason LaBarbera and yada, 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 yada. Not good enough. And we've heard Elliott say that, hey, the Flames are trying to find a backup. I want to go back onto NHL.com, and I'll have it for next game, folks. Because if this tired Dustin Wolf continues, I'll need to have the names. So here's my homework I'm giving to myself and pledging to you. I will go and find the list of goalies that have went through waivers or got claimed by teams with a lesser waiver priority and have that for next game. Christine, I know we don't know that for sure. However, if we look at that first goal Dustin Wolf gives up, it's because his legs aren't fully in the enclosed butterfly. And I think what we've seen of Dustin Wolf to this point in his career, it's led me to believe. I've talked to people who have watched him a lot going back to the days with Everett. It seems to be when he gets overutilized, you see some more of those goals where Dustin Wolf feels he can get to them, but just isn't there. So that's where my evaluation of that is. Now, could I be completely wrong in that and believing the wrong sources? Yes. But it's maybe an easier link to make because it is the first time he's played this much in the NHL. And of course, your number one guy, maybe he needs to play a little bit more. But the fact of the matter is, you saw a goalie that represented Canada get lit up for the Blues, and they say, you know what, we're going to throw Hofer in because we trust in our backup against the Calgary Flames, who are expected to be one of the worst teams in the league this year. To give Binnington, our number one goalie, that opportunity to rest. And Binner is somebody who's been around this league a lot longer than Dustin Wolf. Understands the rigors of an 82-game season at the highest level. So that's where my brain goes with it, at least. It's fully possible that I'm wrong in that belief. That Dustin Wolf just isn't necessarily ready for that level of workload at this point in his career. But I think there's enough evidence of that for there at least to be smoke on that fire, if that's understandable. So I am going to ask for questions now. And as I do that, if you haven't headed over to the Game Over Network and read Andrew's why Game Over still is existing, or why it is still pushing for us to continue, talks about the why of this great network from coast to coast. It talks about some of our struggles. Going through that first year. And so I really, really do encourage you to take some time, if you're getting some time off from work this long weekend, go give it a look. Go give it a glance. It's a quick read. Hey, do what I do. Go get a little bit of a screen reader that's used for accessibility purposes. Have it read out to you as you're working away. I had it read out as I was doing some editing work. But we are heading into this overtime to answer your questions about your Calgary Flames. Gonna go back here and answer some questions. Token number 1, Conrad out. I think that's a little premature. Actually, I think Craig Conrad did great work at the deadline last year. I wonder how much of the decision to maintain Rasmus Andersson as a Calgary Flame was his choice versus those above him. I can't answer that question with the way things are right now. As Matt DeMille said, Flames need to prioritize acquiring more talent at center, and Craig's only signing is Ivan Prosvetov, who, as we all know, isn't in the NHL. And the thing is, we have one of the more respected professional scouting departments in scouting circles from people that I've talked to. How we can't find a European pro and convince them to come to North America is really shocking to me. Who was the one guy we had come over from the Continental Hockey League at a center in the Johnny Matthew days? That was not good, but came over from the KHL. Anyways, but like the fact that we aren't looking to something like that for our widely canned scouting department, or widely praised scouting department, why we can't look at that for a position of need versus a backup goaltender who is marginal at best. Who knows? Tokay with the question, we play Vegas twice in 3 games. Do we get more than 3 points in the next 3? No. Long and short question. Nat, I meant the center. He was big, tall. I think he wore number 16 as the Flame. And then he went to Columbus, I think, after Calgary. But I just can't... I can see the player. I can't put a name to it. But more on the token number 1. We play Vegas twice in 3 games. Do we get more than 3 points in the next 3? I don't think so. Yeah, the Flames' next 3 games are Golden Knights, Mammoth, Golden Knights. The Golden Knights, I think, are one of the best teams in the West. I think Utah is playing with a lot of heart, and it is going down to Utah, then to Vegas for the second and third of those 3 games, respectively. And again, it's a back-to-back with travel. How does the Flames coaching staff handle this? Like, because generally, the line of thinking is you start your starter for game 1 of the back-to-backs. But I don't think this Calgary Flames team can beat the Vegas Golden Knights. So I almost think you need to do the reverse of what standard knowledge is. And I think you have to say, Devin, you're getting fed to the Golden Knights. Sink or swim. It might be for your NHL career. I think it's just the way it has to be. And then you use Dustin the next night down in Utah. Am I crazy for thinking this? Maybe. But that's just my thoughts from way too far away. I'll get out of here. It was a pleasure. Matt, thank you for joining us. Shout out to Matt DeMille, our co-host last year, killing it with the Western Hockey League. Go watch some WHL action. It's really it was a credit having him here last year, and he's doing nothing but amazing with the dub. Thank you, Matt. Go check him out. I'm sure we'll have Matt on at some point this season. Just looking for a couple final comments here. Ryan Huska on the difference between St. Louis's 2 goals. Felt the team didn't do enough to capitalize on their chances in the first 2 periods and got a little loose on their own zone with the 2 deflection goals in the third. It's possible. And Rasmus Andersson said the same in his post-game availability. But I think that's where we will have to end it for today. As I said, just myself for this next string of games, as our friend Anand Unnithan is down in Mexico starting tomorrow. So the next Calgary Flames game, as we mentioned, is on Tuesday, October 14th, 7 o'clock puck drop, so that means 9:45-ish for your Game Over Calgary post-game show. I'm trying to line up some guests for those episodes, so it's not just the monotony of just my voice. I've got the homework of looking through the waivers, seeing which goalies pass through, seeing if there was any that I would have claimed if I was Craig Conroy. That's my commitment to you. And then, as we said, the back-to-back, the Flames then head down from Calgary to Utah, 7:30 puck drop on the 15th. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for your questions. Thank you to Matt DeMille, Toke, Christine, and KQ. Oh, we didn't get to KQ's question of why doesn't Morgan Frost shoot the puck? I think he knows he has Joel Farabee and Matt Coronado on his line more than often than not. 2 guys that can shoot the puck better than he can. But for myself and the rest of the Game Over Network, thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you again on Tuesday.